everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, we talk about all things homesteading, homemaking, and just kind of the journey to a slower, more simple life. We are in the kitchen today, and that is because we are going to make some chicken stock, and I'm going to use this Instapot that I so nicely got as a gift for Christmas from my fiance's late father. And I have yet to use it even once. When I got it, I was still living in an apartment and there actually wasn't anywhere to put it, to use it, and I just haven't used it. I'm not much of a kitchen gadget person, so this is all new, but I figured I would use it in today's video for making the broth because I think it is a good tool to use for that. Now, of course, if you're watching this to kind of follow along on how to make homemade stock, you definitely don't need a Instapot. You can use other things like slow cookers or even just on the stovetop. There's ways to do it. So don't feel like you have to use this fancy device. I am just lucky enough to have somebody who cared about me enough to get it for me. So stock is important because we use it in so many things. We use it in soups and stews. We use it to flavor things like rice or gravies. It is such an important ingredient for the person who makes home-cooked meals. So I use a lot of chicken and beef stock, and I definitely want to get to a point that I am using only homemade. Doing exactly what I'm doing, you can also make bone broth, which is essentially the same thing as stock, except you're allowing the bones to completely let out all of their gelatinous and all their goodness, and the bones completely almost disintegrate. So to achieve that, you just have to leave the ingredients on for a longer period of time than it does to make stock. But today I'm just gonna do stock. So another good thing about stock though is that you don't need to go out and buy ingredients. It's a lot of leftover stuff. So if you ever have a whole baked chicken or anything with chicken bones, since we're making chicken stock, it would be beef bones for beef stock. But if you have bones, you just save them, put them in the freezer. Also save any onion peelings or leftover onion, garlic if you want to, any leftover celery, carrot peelings, anything like that. Instead of throwing it in your compost or throwing it away, just chuck it in a freezer bag, put it in the freezer, and then you can use it to make stock. Now, I don't think stock is the most expensive ingredient in the whole world, but of course with the prices of everything going up, and I have looked at stock before too, and it's not always just nice, wholesome ingredients. There's definitely weird stuff in there that I'm not a huge fan of. So to make something that is used a lot in the kitchen for essentially scraps that I know exactly what's going into it, can't really get any better than that. So let's just get started with this process. First, I have to plug this in, and I really haven't even plugged this in before. I swear I haven't used this at all. Wow. Okay, it says off. So here is my bag of chicken bones, as well as onion peels, the ends of onions, carrot peels, all kinds of good stuff. I'm gonna open this up and place it right in my pot. Now, I'm not gonna flavor mine too much. I know you can make it very garlicky, but I wanna kind of leave mine pretty neutral for the most part so that I can then flavor it for whatever I'm using it for. But I am gonna throw a few sprigs of my homegrown thyme in there just for a little something something. Now, the only other thing I have to do is add water, and I'm just going to put it right below the max fill just to make sure I'm doing this all good. You want to make sure the water you're adding is cold water because it will affect cooking times. As far as the Instapot goes, it will affect how long you need to cook it for if you make it hot water. If you're doing it in like a slow cooker or something like that, I don't think it would really matter as much because you're just kind of watching it and letting it play out for yourself, not as much as having to put it on a specific setting for a specific time. I think we put this on. I will admit that took me longer than I was hoping to figure out how to put the cover back on, but we did it. Now I am hitting the pressure cook setting. Okay, I think I did it. I put it on pressure cooking and I set it for 45 minutes on high, and that should get us a nice rich stock. Like I said previously, if you want to go all the way into a bone broth, you're going to want to do closer to 120 minutes. That'll give it enough time to actually break down the bones fully. But it's telling me it's preheating, so I think I did it. I am kind of freaked out, I'm not gonna lie. I hope I did everything right, and I'll let you know how that goes. But while that is doing its thing, I am gonna make some banana bread. It's my very own banana bread recipe because I got some bananas that are in need to become mush. So this banana bread recipe calls for 3 bananas, obviously peeled, right in a big bowl. And usually for the sugar I add maple syrup, but I'm actually all out of maple syrup right now, so I'll just have to use some granulated. And I add 1/3 cup of sugar. Next is a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Oop, got away from me a little bit, but that's okay. You need 1 egg, a teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 cup of milk, and then just 2 cups of flour. I use a potato masher to mash up the bananas. It works really well. The key is the bananas being at that right stage. That makes them really good for banana bread. Not super mush, like completely mushed, but past the point of most people wanting to eat them just as they are. So I grease my pan with butter and then just put my banana bread mixture in the little bread tin. The oven is preheating to 350 right now. When it gets to the right temperature, we're gonna put it in and leave it in there for 50 to an hour. And then it'll be yummy banana bread. We are just waiting now on the cool down, I think. So we're gonna let the Instapot cool down and then we can open it up and see how our stock looks. It's currently venting, and so it's letting out the steam to make the pressure inside of it go down. And so we're just gonna let this steam out until that right there goes down, and that means it's all good. See how it fell back in? That means we are safe to open it now if we so choose, but I am gonna leave it for another 30 minutes or so because I really want it to cool down before I strain it. So while that is cooling, I'm gonna start on dinner because it is time. I'm gonna do a hamburger gravy over mashed potatoes, and I think I'll do some carrots to go with it. Now it is my mission to pour the broth we have in here through the strainer and into the bowl. But look how nice of a color that is. Wow. Let's look at that. Look at that deep color. That's really good, and it smells really good as well. That's awesome. As you can see, it was still very hot, so I'm gonna let that cool more before I put it in some glass jars. And my plan, I was thinking I would try canning the broth, but tonight, I'm just gonna put it in the fridge. It can keep in the fridge for a few days, so I can then can it tomorrow. But for now, I am finishing supper. This is one of those recipes that I use stock in that soon I won't be buying from the store. All right, I have my dinner ready. I'm gonna go give this to my fiance, and then we're gonna tackle that chicken broth and putting it in to some glass jars. Hello everyone, and we are on day 2 of our chicken stock adventure, and today is going to be the day of the canning, and I'm going to be using my Presto digital canner for the first time, and I am so excited. So I have the stock that I made in the fridge so that it wouldn't go bad overnight, but I'm going to bring it out and dump it into a pot to have that get warmed up on the stove. And while that's warming up on the stove, we are gonna get our jars preheated in the canner. Well, first we wanna make sure this is in the bottom of the pot so that the glass doesn't stick to the bottom and break or anything like that. And then we're going to fill inside of our canner up to the fill line. Also, all of our jars that we're going to use are filled halfway with water. Now that the water is in the canner and I have water halfway in our jars, I have it set on pressure can, and for quarts you need to do chicken broth at 25 minutes, so I think that's right. Okay, it's telling me insert jars. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Now I think I put this on, this down, and I have this part off. So this you just want to have on only when it is time to can. So right now that is off. While all that stuff's going, I'm just gonna get something for lunch started. And so I'm gonna bake some chicken in the oven at 375 with some avocado oil in the bottom of the pan. And I'm gonna season it with salt, pepper, of course, onion powder, garlic powder, and some cumin, because I'm gonna make wraps. And that's how I like to season chicken for wraps. So now my canner says fill jars on it. And so what I'm gonna do is open it up, and now one at a time I am going to take it out of the canner and fill it with the broth, obviously dumping out the water. I have my little device, and I'm gonna go ahead, and you want to leave an inch of head space on each jar. I want to make sure I go over and wipe the rim, because that, if there's anything there, it can prevent a good latch. Now you want to make sure you always use a new lid. You can reuse this part, but you want to always use a brand new lid. So I'm going to put that on, and you want to screw it on just until it gives. Not too tight, not tight enough. Now back into the canner. Lid back on, lid locked, and now I just have to press start. It is now in its process of getting heated up. This is still off at this point. So when this number reaches 0, that is when we're gonna put this on there in can. So we know it is finished with that because now it says cool, and so that means it is cooling down. It says done, so I'm gonna go ahead and wow. Canned chicken broth. So I'm gonna set these out. And although it went through a cooling process, they are still definitely not cold by any means. So my plan is to set these on the counter and not do anything with them until tomorrow. So we'll have to come back again tomorrow to check to see if the lid's sealed correctly. So there. So we're gonna let those sit and cool and check them tomorrow. Da-da-da-da! It is the next day and we are gonna now check. You can kind of check by feeling the top, and it should not bubble. It should not go pop pop because that means it did not seal. And so now we can take this part, unscrew it, and kind of give it a lift. Yeah, that did it. I think we're golden. Wow. Hooray! So together we pressure canned some homemade chicken broth. How exciting is that? It really was not very difficult. It comes from saving scraps of food and then boiling it for a long time or using the Instapot like I did, and then pressure canning it. This is definitely something that could easily be added to your life, to your routine, is keeping up with making broth that you can store to use. But thank you guys for coming along with me on that journey. I'm so glad I got to share that with you. If you like that kind of content and would like to see more in the future, please consider subscribing to my channel. I have a lot more in store. But again, thank you for being here and I hope to see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.